shadows in the pipes. The fluorescent lights flickered weakly against the dingy concrete walls of Oakwood Apartments, casting long, trembling shadows that seemed to breathe with a life of their own. Jacob Martinez moved silently through the building's basement, his weathered hands gripping a rusty toolkit that had been his companion longer than any person had ever been. At 45, Jacob bore the marks of a life lived hard and unforgiving. A network of thin scars traced his forearms, remnants of past struggles that he rarely spoke about. His eyes, a deep brown tinged with gray, constantly scanned his surroundings, a habit born from years of survival and a past he'd rather forget. The pipes around him groaned and whispered, an endless symphony of aging infrastructure. Some residents joked that the building was more patch and rust than actual structure, but to Jacob, it was home, or at least, the closest thing to home he'd known in years. After losing his construction job 5 years ago and spending 2 years battling alcoholism, this janitor position was more than just work. It was his redemption. Tonight felt different. The air was thick with an unusual humidity, and the pipe seemed to pulse with an unsettling rhythm. Jacob paused, listening. The usual creaks and settling sounds of the old building were interrupted by something else, a subtle, almost imperceptible scraping sound coming from deep within the walls. He checked his watch. 11:37 p.m. Most residents were asleep, their lives compressed into small apartments stacked like forgotten storage boxes. Mrs. Chen on the 3rd floor, an elderly Chinese woman who always left him homemade dumplings. Marcus, the college student who worked night shifts and rarely spoke. Elena, a single mother with 2 young children. Each had their story, their own quiet struggles. As Jacob moved towards the maintenance room, he noticed something odd. A small puddle of water had formed near one of the oldest pipe connections, its edges glistening with an unusual, almost oily sheen. He knelt down, running his fingers along the wet floor. The liquid was warm, unnaturally so, and seemed to have a faint, metallic smell that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Probably another leak, he muttered to himself, a reflexive attempt to rationalize the strange sensation creeping up his spine. But something felt off. The puddle shouldn't be here. These pipes had been checked just last week. A sudden loud bang from deeper in the basement made Jacob jump. He spun around, toolkit raised defensively, but saw nothing. Just endless rows of pipes, shadows dancing between them like restless spirits. The building's residents were a mixed bag, working-class people, immigrants, students, all sharing this aging structure that seemed to hold more secrets than its crumbling walls could contain. Jacob knew most of them by name, by routine. He watched over them in his own quiet way, fixing what was broken,